is a lot of people didn't associate this with Fort Sherman, but Pina Range. And Pina Range was used for live firing exercises and was located on the Atlantic side of the canal. And throughout the range locations and so forth, I used to document the unexploded ordnance site investigations of the U.S. military ranges in Panama. And that was Empire, Balboa West, and Pina Range. And I use those as a source for the mapping. So Pina Range, and I'll back up here a little bit first so people can get their bearings. These are the Gatun Locks. This is Gatun Lake, and Chagres River runs here. And actually, Fort Sherman ran, down along this point almost to town here of Escobar. Okay, so going back to this particular point, and these, by the way, are this particular point, 824A, was the multi-purpose range firing point. Okay, they would fire out into these areas here. The study I mentioned looked at these, and primarily in the firing points, and they took samples looking for different types of unexploded ordnance. And what they found here was that even after the site investigation, this particular firing point was still being used. So they classified the whole thing as an area of concern. But as to the firing point itself, it was rather low. But anywhere around here, there could be unexploded ordnance. Let me talk a little more about this study. This study was done in 1997, and it was done preparing for the turnover in 1999 of all the final places to Panama. And Panama had expressed concerns about the unexploded ordnance that was around. And they also had people who were interested in, developing some of the property along the canal and so forth. So this study came about to find out what was the extent of unexploded ordnance and so forth. And they could only sample certain areas. The study itself explains the methodology they used and what points they looked at. And hopefully this shares. So, there is a link here, and we've got it in references. This was the final report, and I was wrong. It's July 1998. And it was prepared specifically for the Canal Zone Canal Treaty implementation. And I used that in order to get the points, because they had all the points classified. And while we're talking about that study, there's also an email from 1997 that is going to pop up a few points, and it talks about some of the problems that are involved with the range study. And And specifically, they're talking about cleanup methods, because in order to guarantee that there was no unexploded ordinance left in here, what they would have to do is completely strip the land of all trees and vegetation and dig down to a certain depth of soil over the whole area. In other words, they'd have to rip out the jungle and so forth. And Panama didn't really want that. And I guess, it would have been very expensive to do. And it would cause problems with erosion and so forth. So what's happened instead is that a lot of these areas are now used as protected lands. So instead of developing things on it, they're now using them as like a forest preserve or so forth. Okay, moving on. 24C. This is, again, part of the Pina Range, and this was the demolition range. And the study noted on it that it was not an area of concern. In fact, they completely removed it as a possible area of concern. But they also noted that it was still being used. So after the study, the extent to which it was used is unknown, and therefore, it could be dangerous. And that shows up right here on the 1969 map. And from that study, this is the area of Pina Range included. We were looking earlier at the main part of Fort Sherman, which is up here. We looked at batteries down along here. Fort San Lorenzo is down here. Curtis Jungle Points, Gatun Drop Zone, and the old French Canal running down here. One more point on Pina Range. And this was called the Wildfire Village, and it had a mock-up and so forth that they could run exercises and so forth. And backing up a little bit here, it was also called the Wildfire Rapid Module. And these points were used not only by jungle training, but also by units on the Atlantic side for, practice and so forth. And the study listed this as a low to medium area concern. And there was an access road that comes out here. This is S10. S10 runs up there to the Gatun Locks. Whether that access road is still passable is really unknown at this point. And on our 1969 view, here we are down here, and there's S10 road running up toward the locks. And again, the study map in your range.
I'd like to thank veteran Richard Wyman for putting together all of this information on possible places to test in the Panama Canal Zone. I'd like you to all come over to the Military Veterans Advocacy and join with us today. We are further than we have ever been before. We have a rulemaking request that's been granted by the VA Secretary. We have an HR 5026 bill for Panama introduced into the Congress, and we could not have done that without the Military Veterans Advocacy and the leadership of Commander John Wells. There's also a ton of information under the Veterans of Panama Canal that we have submitted to the VA Secretary who granted our request. So this information might be able to help you in your claims. And if you need help with an attorney, if you're at the appeals level, use our contact button and contact our administrative staff and they can guide you for help.